Welcome to the exam preparation for DP-700 implementing data engineering solutions using Microsoft Fabric. I am your AI technical trainer, Barbara Andrews, and this video series will guide you through the essential strategies for taking the DP-700 exam. Our focus is on exam strategy and preparation, not teaching concepts. We will cover the objectives, best practices, tips and tricks, and exam key points. The content in these exam prep videos has been created by myself and a team of subject matter experts, while we use avatars to keep these videos fresh as exams evolve. This video will also include a lot of visual information for reference. Remember, you can pause the video at any time to review the content. This exam is designed for those who have hands-on experience in designing, implementing, and managing data solutions using Microsoft Fabric. You may also take the optional training DP-600 for Fabric's Analytics Engineer Associate. After receiving the certification, you may have taken the official Microsoft training, either self-paced, online, or instructor-led training. Your path to becoming a Fabric Data Engineer Associate involves several steps. This video series is your comprehensive guide to exam preparation, covering essential topics and providing valuable study resources. Be sure to also make use of labs, study guides, and practice tests, and focus on the skills highlighted during the exam prep course to ensure you are thoroughly prepared. Once you feel confident in your understanding of the content, it's time to take the exam. Now, let's get started. In this series, each episode will cover one of the three groups in the objective domain. For DP-700, these groups are Episode 1, Implement and Manage an Analytics Solution. Episode 2, Ingest and Transform Data. And lastly, Episode 3, Monitor and Optimize an Analytics Solution. Each group has a specific weight, indicating the percentage of questions that will come from each area. Currently, each episode has an equal weightage of 30 to 35% in this exam, so you will need to be familiar with all of them. This exam prep video series will help you with three key things: ingest and transform data, secure and manage an analytics solution, monitor and optimize an analytics solution. Keep in mind, this series is not a replacement for official Microsoft training or your hands-on experience. While it will guide you on what to expect in the exam, it won't teach the topics in detail. Use it to spot any knowledge gaps and focus your time and resources accordingly. Let's dive into the content of Episode 1, which focuses on implementing and managing an analytics solution. In this episode, we will cover how to configure Microsoft Fabric workspace settings, implement lifecycle management in Fabric, configure security and governance, and orchestrate processes. Here is a list of all the different skills you may be tested on. This list isn't exhaustive, and while we won't be covering every skill in this video, be sure you can perform these skills before taking the exam. When it comes to configuring workspace settings in Microsoft Fabric, remember that the exam isn't testing your ability to memorize every button or menu, but rather your understanding of how to manage and troubleshoot workspace environments efficiently and securely. Start by recognizing that configuring a workspace in Fabric involves several layers: Spark compute settings, library management, resource sharing, domain settings, and workspace governance. For Spark Compute, you'll need to know how to select the appropriate runtime for your analytics workloads. The exam may present scenarios where you're asked what happens if you update the Spark runtime. Here, it's crucial to remember that any existing configurations or libraries must be compatible with the new runtime, or publishing will fail. If incompatibilities arise, you'll need to remove or update those libraries before republishing. Fabric allows you to use built-in libraries, install from public sources, or upload custom ones. Files uploaded to the environment are accessible across notebooks, which is especially useful during development. The exam might ask you how to ensure resources are available for collaborative work, or how to troubleshoot when a resource isn't accessible. When it comes to domain workspace settings, expect questions about configuring domains and subdomains, assigning admins and contributors, and overriding tenant-level settings. You should be comfortable navigating the domain settings pane and understanding the implications of each tab, such as general settings, images, and delegated settings. Workspace governance is another critical area. As a Fabric administrator, you'll need to manage workspace states: active, orphaned, deleted, removing, and not found. Finally, database projects in Fabric are a unique feature you might see on the exam. Understand the development and deployment workflow: extracting SQL objects, editing in VS Code, building DAC files, and deploying with SQL package. The exam may ask you to identify the correct sequence of steps or troubleshoot issues in the deployment process, such as handling incremental updates or ensuring cross-platform portability between SQL Server, Azure SQL, and Fabric. Incremental refresh is a game changer for managing large semantic models, allowing for faster and reliable refreshes with lower resource consumption. You'll need to know that incremental refresh must be configured in Power BI Desktop before publishing your semantic model, and once set, the policy is carried through each stage of the deployment pipeline. The exam may present scenarios where you're asked about updating a .pbix file, deploying it through development, test, and production stages, and verifying changes at each step. Also, keep in mind that incremental refresh settings aren't copied in Gen 1 workspaces, and there are specific limitations when working with data flows, such as unsupported service principals and the use of Fabric blob storage even if the source is ADLS Gen 2. If a data flow is being refreshed during deployment, the process will fail, and comparing stages during a refresh can lead to unpredictable results. The exam may also test your knowledge of workspace roles. Members and admins have different permissions for deploying, updating, and configuring semantic models, and only semantic model owners can update models if certain security settings are enabled. Finally, remember that workspace-level security in Fabric allows for granular control over data access and integrates with CI/CD tools like Git, which is increasingly relevant for enterprise deployments. So, as you prepare, focus on the workflow, the limitations, and the permissions model. Database projects are your way to manage SQL schema as code, enabling you to develop, version, and deploy database changes with precision and control. In Fabric, a database project is a local representation of all your SQL objects: tables, stored procedures, functions, and views, organized as files you can edit and track in source control. You'll use Visual Studio Code with the SQL Database Projects extension to build and maintain these projects, always targeting the Fabric SQL database as your platform. The workflow starts by extracting SQL objects from an existing Fabric database, then editing and validating them locally. Once your changes are ready, you build the project to generate a .dacpack file, which is a portable schema definition. Committing your changes to source control ensures traceability and collaboration, and when it's time to update the database, you deploy the .dacpack using the SQL package tool. The exam will expect you to know that this deployment process is incremental. Only the necessary changes are applied, not a full overwrite, making updates efficient and safe. You'll also need to recognize that this workflow supports cross-platform portability, so you can move databases between SQL Server, Azure SQL, and Fabric without friction. If you encounter troubleshooting scenarios, think about validating syntax, resolving deployment errors, and ensuring your project targets the correct platform. When you're asked about creating and configuring deployment pipelines in Microsoft Fabric, remember that the exam is looking for your understanding of the workflow and your ability to manage content across multiple environments. You'll start by defining the number of stages in your pipeline, and as these are permanent, so choose wisely and know that you can customize stage names and have anywhere from 2 to 10 stages. Pipelines can be created from the deployment pipeline's entry point or directly from a workspace, and if you start from a workspace, it's automatically assigned to the pipeline. Once your pipeline is set up, you'll assign workspaces to each stage, making sure the right content is managed at every step. The exam may test your knowledge of making stages public, which allows users without pipeline access to see the workspace as a regular environment, and you can adjust this setting as needed. When deploying content, you'll choose between full, selective, or backward deployment. Understanding when to use each is key for scenario questions. You'll also need to know how to review deployment history, compare content between stages, and create deployment rules to maintain configuration consistency, such as pointing semantic models to the correct databases in each stage. Finally, be aware that after initial deployment, gateway mappings to data sources must be configured manually, and subsequent deployments won't reset these mappings. Fabric uses a flexible role-based model, admin, member, contributor, and viewer, each with distinct capabilities from managing the workspace to simply viewing content. The exam may test your ability to assign the right role for a scenario, so focus on what each role can and cannot do. You'll also want to recognize that workspace roles are specific to each workspace and don't carry over to others, so permissions must be managed individually. Expect questions about sharing items, where you'll need to decide which permissions to grant, and about more granular controls like limiting report data visibility based on user roles. For advanced scenarios, be ready to configure trusted workspace access with ADLS Gen 2, which involves workspace identities, Azure RBAC roles, and resource instance rules, details that can make or break access in a real deployment. Finally, keep in mind that network and security configurations, such as public access settings and conditional access policies, can impact trusted access, and the exam may probe your troubleshooting skills here. The item-level access controls let you grant or restrict access to individual items, like a semantic model, warehouse, or lakehouse within a workspace, independent of broader workspace roles. Sharing an item with a user or group gives them read access by default, allowing them to view metadata and reports, but not the underlying data in SQL or OneLake unless further permissions are granted. Each Fabric item type may have its own unique permission set, so be ready to identify which permissions apply in different scenarios. For OneLake, permissions like read, read it all, and write determine whether a user can view, write, or query data, and these are managed separately from workspace roles. In Fabric, permissions can be set within specific compute engines like the SQL Analytics endpoint or semantic models. This allows for fine-grained controls such as table and row-level security. The SQL Analytics endpoint provides direct SQL access to tables in OneLake, with security configured natively through SQL commands. These permissions only apply to SQL queries. Semantic models use DAX to define security, which applies to users querying through the semantic model or Power BI reports built on top of it. OneLake Security allows users to specify row-level security by writing SQL predicates to limit what data is shown to a user. It operates by showing rows where the predicate evaluates to true. Column-level security lets you hide specific columns from users. If a column is hidden, users won't see it, and queries return no data for that column. In SQL Endpoint, CLS uses a strict deny approach. If access is denied, all roles are blocked, even if other roles would allow access. This ensures sensitive columns remain protected. CLS is implemented using the grant tsql statement to assign permissions. Assigning permissions to roles is preferred over assigning them to individual users for easier management and scalability. Object-level security lets model authors restrict access to entire tables or columns, so only authorized viewers can see sensitive data. Unauthorized users won't see those elements at all. In Power BI Desktop, OLS is set up using external tools like Tabular Editor. OneLake Security uses inherited permissions. Granting access to a folder automatically applies to all its files and subfolders, making management easier and data protection stronger. Dynamic data masking hides sensitive data for non-privileged users without changing the database or application code. Know the 4 masking types: default, email, random, and custom string, and who can see unmasked data, roles, or unmasked permission. Always combine masking with row-level and column-level security for stronger protection. Sensitivity labels protect data and help meet compliance, but you need the right license and permissions to apply them. Label items from the menu or settings. If you can't, it's likely a permissions issue. For endorsement, only authorized reviewers can certify or assign master data badges. Know the roles and how to request endorsement. Workspace monitoring aggregates logs and metrics in a secure Event House database, letting you analyze performance and usage with KQL or SQL and visualize insights in dashboards or Power BI. OneLake Security in Microsoft Fabric lets you apply role-based access control to your data, ensuring only the right users can access specific folders or tables. You can create security roles, assign users or groups, and even add row or column-level restrictions for granular protection. If a user isn't part of a data access role, they won't see any data in that item. To get started, you need admin or member permissions in the workspace. Roles can be set to cover all data or just selected tables and folders, and you can add members manually or through advanced configuration using permission groups. OneLake Security works at multiple levels: workspace, item, and folder, making it easy to enforce least privilege and secure sensitive data across your organization. When working with Microsoft Fabric, selecting the right data integration tool is key to building efficient solutions. Start by considering your primary goal. Do you need to ingest, transform, replicate, orchestrate data movement, or handle real-time streaming? Also, think about your technical skill level. Do you prefer no-code or low-code tools, or are you comfortable writing code? Pipelines are ideal for low-code orchestration, letting you group multiple activities and connect to any Fabric-compatible source or destination. They're perfect for data integrators, business analysts, and data engineers who want to automate workflows without heavy coding. Notebooks, on the other hand, are code-first and best for complex data preparation and transformation. They leverage Spark libraries and are suited for data scientists and developers who need advanced, customizable processing. Let's look at how Microsoft Fabric automates data workflows with scheduling and event-based triggers. You can run data pipelines on demand by manually triggering them, or set up schedules to run them automatically at specific times and frequencies. This is perfect for routine tasks like daily data loads. For more dynamic automation, Fabric supports event-based triggers. For example, you can start a pipeline when a new file arrives in storage or when a file is deleted. These triggers can be set up using event streams or reflex triggers, allowing your data processes to respond instantly to business events. You can also orchestrate complex workflows by combining pipelines with notebooks. Pass parameters and use dynamic expressions to make your solutions flexible, like running a notebook with a file path that updates automatically each day. Parameterize and template pipelines. Prefer tumbling windows for time-aligned ingestion. Use event triggers for low latency. Enforce idempotent tasks. Secure credentials. Managed identity plus Key Vault. Add monitoring alerts in runbooks. To recap, in this episode, we discussed how to configure Microsoft Fabric workspace settings, implement lifecycle management in Fabric, configure security and governance, and orchestrate processes. Remember, this group accounts for 30 to 35% of the exam, so keep that in mind when preparing for the exam. Thank you for watching Episode 1 on implementing and managing an analytics solution. Be sure to join us for Episode 2, where we cover ingesting and transforming data.